And I'm black. Y'all, thank you so much for your patience with me as I took a much needed mental health break for the Mercury retrograde. But I'm black and I'm better than ever. And I want to talk about facing the darkness within. First and foremost, I just really want to thank you all for your support. Knowing that I have such a supportive community here on YouTube really allowed me to take a break and not feel so guilty or driven about it, as if I'm sort of missing out on some sort of opportunity, you know? I definitely credit that to your support and the ways that you all have shown up for me in the past, and continue to do so. And yeah, that level of consistency made taking a break a breeze. So thank you so much for your support. And thank you for surviving Mercury retrograde. How did this one treat you? How did it affect the Aries and Pisces houses in your chart? What did you learn? What did you reconsider? What did you reevaluate? And what will you implement now that we are on the other side of the thing? For me, I spent a lot of time reconsidering how I do my YouTube channel and my online presence, generally speaking. So some changes are definitely forthcoming, but that's a whole other video. So keep your eyes peeled for that next Wednesday. But today, this Wednesday, I want to go into a little bit of a story time about my 12th house profection year. What I learned, what I released, and what I'm taking forward with me. So just to review concepts, there are 12 houses in the natal chart, right? There's also this timing technique in traditional astrology called the concept of profection years. And it's basically this idea that every year on your birthday, you begin a brand new year devoted to one of the 12 houses in your natal chart. To interpret what any particular profection year would be about, you would look at the house that it focuses on and what area of life that is, right? Then you would look at how you might approach that area of life by looking at the sign on that house. And then to prepare yourself for any particular lessons that you might learn, you might look at the planets that are in that house, or if that house happens to be devoid of planets, you would look at the ruling planets for that sign and find those in your chart to help you interpret and make meaning about what you should be focused on for that particular profection year and what lessons might come up, how you might grow, and how that growth might contribute to your evolution. Now, between you, me, and Jeebus, they do be saying that the hardest profection years are the 4th, 8th, and 12th house years. And maybe I have found that to be true. Let's talk about that a little bit further. So the 4th, 8th, and 12th houses in our chart can speak to some of the more difficult experiences that we have in our lives. The 4th house, you know, some of the childhood trauma experiences or the things that you feel a little bit more private about. The 8th house, your experience of losses or deaths in your life. Yeah, both like the experience of like the loss of life, but also the loss of a job, the loss of community, the loss of beauty or physical prowess, or a whole host of things that one could experience loss around. And then the 12th house has to do with experiences of undoing yourself, self-betrayal, but also experiences of isolation, for better or worse. But because the 4th, 8th, and 12th house deals with those particular sorts of issues, when we have 4th, 8th, and 12th house profection years, those can be years in which those issues come up. And so that's why people consider those years more challenging than others. But honestly, it's all part of our growth and evolution. Specifically around the 12th house, another name for it is the house of self-undoing. Because if you think about it, all of the houses in a chart kind of build on each other. You know, the 3rd supports the 2nd, the 2nd supports the 1st, and so on, right? But also the opposite could be said to be true. How the 1st house deals with our experience of ourself, and so undoing the self can be one of the 12th house experiences. Again, full spectrum of undoing. This could be the undoing of self-betrayal, or it could be the undoing of ego and ego death that leads to some sort of realization about our connection in this universe. So many ways of being undone, right? And then I will also say about the 12th house, a reminder that it sits between the 1st and the 11th. So how does your experience of the 11th house, your friend groups, your place in society, as well as the experience of the 1st house, your identity, your ego, your concept of yourself and how you present yourself in the world, how do those contribute to 12th house experiences? Yes, the undoing of the self, but also how is it that you find your place in society in the 11th house and then are immediately asked to step away from that. And in doing so, how you might change yourself for the better. So now that we have that theoretical framework, I want to tell you about my experience of the 12th house year. So, things that you should know. My 12th house is in Scorpio. Whoo! Breathe through it. In terms of how self-betrayal, how self-undoing shows up in my life, in a Scorpio way, which means one thing, I can be very stuck in my feelings about things. I definitely have a tendency towards depression / pessimism, or maybe more accurately, a stagnancy of emotion. Yeah. My spirituality is something that I keep very close to the chest. Is that the phrase? Under the vest? I don't talk about my spirituality a lot. In terms of planetary teachers, I have Uranus in my 12th house, which in my experience gives a sort of it's a nervous system experience of intuition. For most of my life, that has looked like anxiety, oversensitivity kinds of things. But in my 12th house here, it changed. But we're going to get there. Hold on. Other planets. Scorpio is ruled by both Pluto and Mars. I find Pluto in my 11th house of friends and my place in society in Libra. And I find Mars in my 3rd house in Aquarius. 3rd house having to do with a lot with communications and how we think about things. And what I found during my 12th house year was definitely a sense of deepening of the loss that I experienced from my 11th house year, which was very much realizing that my place in society feels very narrow, because the folks that I thought were community are not actually my definition of community. And if you are a COVID conscious person, I bet you know exactly what I mean. Child, these fools is eugenicists. Like, here I thought we were queering and transgressing things, but y'all a whole bunch of eugenicists. What am I supposed to do with that? But step away. And so I feel like that was the Pluto part of the 12th house year experience. And then I feel like the Mars and Aquarius part of the Pluto experience was, and I think this is combined with the Uranus energy too. All of a sudden, my intuition went from like 0 to 1,000 in what seemed like overnight. I haven't figured out how to harness it yet. So drop some tips and hints in the comments. What I'm experiencing is something like, was it claircognizance, when you just know things? I will also say, in terms of like the positive experiences that I had around my 12th house year, it felt really good to have my Mars activated, Mars in Aquarius activated, as it related to getting my social media work done. Like, I feel like the confluence of the 3rd house being about communication and Aquarius so much associated with social media and technology gave me the oomph, the energy, the vitality, the whatever the Martian words are, to the drive to get things done as it relates to my social media presence, and this channel in particular. And I am so grateful for that. But then at the same time, as soon as my 12th house year was over, Lord, the dip, the dive, the nosedive of energy that I have experienced has got me shook. So yeah, I'll be talking about that in next week's video as well, because things really gotta change. That drive has definitely changed. And now that I reflect back on it, I wonder if a lot of the ways that I showed up in terms of my online presence were rooted in 12th house themes, self-betrayal, because that's where I'm at now, noticing my actual baseline energy levels and noticing how close I am to burnout, which is another Uranian experience. In terms of more challenging experiences, I definitely feel like the 11th house year loss of community that I felt deepened, but also maybe in a productive way that allowed me to grieve that loss. I feel like when I was in my 11th house year and actively recognizing and stepping away from communities that I thought were aligned with me, I think that came with a lot of like sadness, maybe anger. No, definitely anger. And then I feel like in the 12th house year, I was able to process more of that and actually just grieve that loss. I can want for people to disrupt that programming and move beyond eugenics, but you can't want more for people than they want for themselves. That fact used to make me really sad, but now it just feels like a fact. The sky is blue, the grass is green. You can't want more for people than they want for themselves. Yeah. But also in true Sagittarius rising Pisces sun form, I am delusional, and I hope a lot for Neptune in Aries. I hope a lot for Neptune in Aries, in which people see the ways in which the wool has been pulled over their eyes, and maybe we dream of fighting, of disrupting. I don't know. I hope I dream delusional whirl forever. Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say about my 12th house year that I had not considered until I was in the thick of it is the 12th house, 6th house axis, and how anything happening in your 12th house is also touching and triggering some change in the 6th house. So In my 12th house year, I really started to recognize the ways in which my 6th house stuff, daily routines, health practices, just the idea of getting your shit together, how a lot of that was rooted in self-betrayal. Speaking of delusional, I am a person who does not often confront head on, face the reality of my health practices or lack thereof and how they are affecting my body, my life, my day to day, you know? And in my 12th house year, I just got really clear on the ways in which I do not have my shit together, and not in a perfectionist kind of way, but in a way that like shows that I honor myself. So now as I step into my 1st house year, I am considering what does a version of me look like that puts themselves and their health first before work, before other people, before trying to scramble up the money to pay the rent so that I can survive capitalism, those things. So with my 6th and 12th axis being in fixed signs, I definitely got a lot of clarity about the ways in which I am experiencing stuckness. I don't know if I have the clarity about how to shift that stuckness. And that is something that I am considering as I go into my 1st house Profection year, which, as a reminder, is all about the self that I present to the world, this version of myself that could be a little bit more evolved or further along or healed or growing in my journey. Yeah. So this version of myself that prioritizes my care for real. I wonder what do they look like? Who is she? I would like to go to there. I would like to see that. Especially because my 1st house is ruled by Sagittarius, and I want to feel less stuck and more expansive and definitely more free. Yeah, those are some of my very nascent thoughts only like 3 weeks into my 1st house Profection year. Happy belated birthday to me. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that I'm thinking about, noticing, keeping an eye out for as I go into this experience of my 1st house Profection year. And I gotta say, my 12th house Profection year, not that bad. Nor was my 8th house Profection year, nor was my 4th house Profection year. I feel like as I grow, evolve, shift things, these potentially challenging 4th, 8th, 12th house years are less challenging and more about the little tweaks. Yeah. So that feels like healing, growth, progress. Did anybody else finish up their 12th house Profection year recently? Tell me about it. What did you learn? Also, anybody going through a Scorpio year, I want to hear about those experiences as well, because, yeah, the depths, the still waters really do run deep. That's it. That is the story of my 12th house Profection year. Thank you so much for listening, watching, for making it this far, for supporting my channel, all of the things. Also, let me know if you like this style of video, these astrological story times. I definitely want to do more of them. Speaking of my work, if you would like to support my work here on this channel, please consider becoming a channel member. Membership in this channel starts at $3.99 a month, and you get really cool perks like custom emojis and loyalty badges. You get to see content first before it's released anywhere else. And you get to support your favorite Black queer autistic artist and astrologer. I totally understand if that monthly commitment is outside your capacity. Instead, please consider doing a one-time gift using that thanks button below. And if neither of those options feel like they are within your capacity, please know that I understand, and that support can also look like commenting, can also look like liking, can also look like telling your people about this channel, about me, my work. Those things are incredibly valuable to me as well. All right, y'all, that is the video. Once again, I sincerely thank you for your support and allowing me to take a break and come back and still feel as if I am connected to you all. That is the type of community that I want to be in. So thanks for being part of my community. So glad to be Black. I got so much to talk to you about. Next Wednesday, we'll talk about it. Okay. Until then, bye.